There we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gina Sudam. I'm the president of the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce. You've joined us this morning for our Restart, Rebound, Rebuild series. We are talking about budgeting this morning, so rebuilding your budget after COVID-19. I have with us Diana Patton, who is with Numbers Made Easy. She has been in accounting and bookkeeping for several years, and she'll tell us a little bit about her background in a minute. But I do want to say this is our last week of the series. So today we're going to talk budgeting. Wednesday, we're going to talk about how the chamber is rebuilding after COVID-19 and what our future plans are here at the chamber. And answer any questions you have. So if you have anything outstanding that you want us to talk about on Wednesday, we'd be happy to do that. And then Friday, we are giving you the day off because it is 4th of July weekend. So I do wish you all well this weekend for the 4th of July and that you have some relaxing downtime. So for today, we're going to get started with Diana Patton. So welcome, Diana. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I have my business, Numbers Made Easy Consulting, and actually, Gina, it's been more than several years. It's been 20 years. I am a certified QuickBooks Pro advisor, and that's how that's what my business is. And I'm also a township treasurer, and that's how I started my career in using QuickBooks. Was back in 1992. So I am very, very schooled on budgets because we have to present them every single year with municipalities. And so that's why Gina asked me if I could join in today and talk a little bit about budgets. My township job is just a part-time job. My full-time job is my business, Numbers Made Easy. And I hope that I make numbers easy for everybody. And I'm looking forward to talking to everybody today on how to build their budgets or to work with their budgets, especially in these very, very trying times with COVID. So.
Well, again, I thank you so much for joining us this morning, Diana. And I know we talked a little bit last week. And why don't you share a little bit how COVID has impacted you and your business? We were just talking about the quite experience you had this past week too with COVID, right?
With going out?
Yes, with your going out experience. It's all been crazy, right?
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have read the news today, but Grotto in Harvey's Lake and Wilkes-Barre has shut their doors again due to COVID, and we went and ate there last week. So a little bit nervous about that, but it's been a week, and everybody's fine still. So how has COVID affected my business? Right off the bat, one of the things that it did, how it affected me is I am a trainer and I do seminars for the state of Pennsylvania. It's called PSATs, and that is the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. And I travel across the state of Pennsylvania and teach an all-day seminar on QuickBooks, and it is strictly for municipalities. That is, I've taught many other seminars. I've taught for Bucknell SBDC for about 14 years. I taught down there, and I've taught at Keystone College and Lackawanna College, and for the chamber up in Wyalusing. So I do a lot of seminars. But anyway, how COVID affected me is we had 7 seminars scheduled with PSATs across the state of Pennsylvania, and they were to go from February through April 1st. And then we got 2 of them in, and everything was shut down. We started getting phone calls from municipalities saying that we weren't welcome to, because we typically will use a municipal building to do our seminars in. And then obviously the whole state shut down. So that is one way that it affected me. So in my business, I make money from my seminars, obviously, and then I usually get clients from my seminars as well. So typically I will have anywhere between 20 and 30, 35 people that attend these seminars. So it was a big impact on me at first, and I got very, very nervous myself as a business owner, because that's my income, that's my revenue. Fortunately for me, PSATS is a great institution, and they service municipalities, and their goal was to continue to service municipalities. So what they did was we turned our live seminars into webinars. So just as today, hey everybody, I have a confession to make, my first Zoom meeting today. And I'm sure everybody's going, how is this your first Zoom? But anyway, it is. And so it's exciting for me to do this today. And with the webinars, I had only done one webinar in the past as well. So that was a challenge in itself for me to be able to do the webinars. But we did a 5-series webinar Wednesdays, and it was great. We had 78 people that attended. They bought the series, and we had 78 people that attended them. So it was really a great experience to be able to do that. And now, just as a side note to that, they've added 5 more webinars now, and we are going to be doing a budgeting one. So that will be in September. But again, they're basically the same. A government budget is mandatory, a business budget is not. But everybody should really work off of a budget and try and work with that. So that's how it's affected me. I had some businesses that actually had to shut their doors that I work with. But thankfully, all of them have been able to open back up. So, you know, I'm watching out for them and advising them on, you know, some things that they can do, and hopefully helping them with some budgets as well.
Well, I know you have some great tips prepared for us today.
I do. I did some research when Gina asked me to come in and do this, and I'm going to just talk about a budget to begin with. One of the things that's important when you're doing a budget is to know your past information, your historical information. So hopefully most of the people that attend, that are in business or attending today, you do use some kind of a software that you have historical information. If you don't, I'm sure you can always do spreadsheets or something like that. But that's the first and foremost important thing, is to get historical information. And so that's where you start with it. Typically you'll look at 2 years and say, okay, you know, this is how much revenue I had in the last 2 years, and then these are what my expenditures were for the last 2 years. And then you'll go from this year to current, and then you can project what you might be getting in the future. Creating a business budget starts with projecting your revenue. So as I just said, you look at the past, and then you're going to look at the projection of what you're going to be getting, or hoping to be getting. An easy way to estimate that is to analyze the different types of business records in small business. And again, looking at your historical information. And expenses, the same thing. You're going to be, you also need to determine the costs associated with your business. You know, again, past and present, and then future. So in doing that, right now, obviously, revenue has been cut down. So now what we want to do is we want to think about how we can cut down our expenditures as well. So what I found was 25 ideas for cutting costs. And Gina and I went over these with her earlier today, and we talked about them. And there was even a few of them that I have never even thought about. And I thought they were really interesting. So I wanted to share these with everybody. So we have we have small, medium, and large changes that we can be making. So I'm just going to go down through the list and talk about them briefly. Spend less on utilities. Making smart use of electricity, water, and heat. Plus, obviously power saving appliances can take a chunk out of your monthly bills. So I was saying, I know I've gone to restaurants before where they only had cold water running. And so that might be something where you can save some money on your electric bills. Turn your hot water heater off. If water is water when you wash your hands. It doesn't have to be hot water when you're washing your hands. So that could be possibly something. If you have, maybe in your restroom, if you have an issue with a toilet where it's running or something, maybe turn it off at night when nobody's there so that could be some way. Maybe refuse, maybe call your refuse if you have a 2-yard bin for refuse and you really don't need that. Maybe you can jump down to bags versus a bin. That could be something where you could save some money.
We talked about some of those nice to have expenses, Diana. One of them was the window washing, right? So we mentioned that it's a nice to have a company that comes and cleans your windows, but is it a necessity right now when you're trying to save money? So those are some of those nice to have expenses or nice to have things done for you, but maybe there are employees that could be doing some of those things rather than paying an outside company.
And even as far as, again, even with cleaning if you have a cleaning company that comes in, maybe it doesn't need to be spotless all the time. If somebody just runs the vacuum, every day at the end of the day or whatnot. Because I know I have some clients, they hire somebody to come in and do cleaning. They pay quite a significant amount of money to have a cleaning company come in. And it's kind of hard to talk like this, to tell people to do things like this, because obviously the cleaning companies are also important and they want to stay in business as well. But we all have to cut corners where we can cut corners. And if that is something that you can do as a business, then that's what you have to do. And that goes along with our third one, cutting back on monthly services. So the window cleaning, the cleaning of your house, janitorial services, things like that. Or maybe even negotiate, okay, if instead of coming in once a week, come in only once every 2 weeks, something like that. Cutting down on your office supplies. When you go to order something, do I really, really need that right now? And maybe instead of buying a ream of paper or a pallet of paper, you think about what you really need as far as your paper goes, your pencils, things like that. Paying invoices early. A lot of businesses, now I do bookkeeping for a lot of businesses, and I know that I'm always paying attention to the invoices when they come in. If there's a 2% discount if you pay by the 10th of the month, then you take that 2% discount at this point. That's a good way to save money on that. Reducing your travel costs, telecommunicating, public transit, maybe discount flights. Another thing is if you're in sales and you used to go to your clients. I know that I was telling Gina earlier, I put gas in my car once in 2 months. And I used to go to my clients all the time. And now instead of using Zoom, I use TeamViewer. So my clients don't typically get to look at me, but we work one-on-one all the time. So I'm always remoting in with my clients. As a matter of fact, today, as soon as I'm done with this Zoom, I've got 2 appointments to jump on with TeamViewer with 2 different clients as soon as I'm done. And that's what I do instead of jumping in my car now. And I even got some new clients through the COVID. And the very first thing I said, explain to them is I won't come to your business. And it isn't even so much because of the COVID anymore, but it's because I like working in my home and out of my office. And I don't have to go on site to my clients. I can work from home. So maybe that's something that a business, that you as a business owner can also do, is work more remotely. Since we've all been forced to work remotely, maybe it's an option that's better. Be smart about bulk buying. Maybe you can talk to your fellow business owners and bulk buy. Gina and I were talking about that earlier again as well, the PPE supplies that we have to have. Instead of you just going out and buying a quart of something, maybe you can talk to your neighboring businesses and you can buy gallons of it instead, and you all share it and share the cost for it. Those are just some of the things that you can do. Bartering for goods and services, that's another thing that you could possibly do. You can, again, one of my clients, they have people that buy off of them, so and then they had some work done by them, so they bartered it. So that's a good thing. That works. Sign up for loyalty programs. One of the things with credit cards is use your credit cards so you can get the points. I just talked to somebody about this the other day. They never use a credit card. And I said, why wouldn't you use a credit card? For one thing, it gives you more time for cash flow. And of course, you want to be smart. You want to hopefully pay your credit cards off but every month, but it gives you more time, but you can also have rewards and points. So maybe that is a way for you to save on travel, because you have your rewards are travel or their money, and that way you can save some money that way. Negotiating your lease, obviously that's something. If you're leasing your property, you can always go and talk to the owners of the property and say, listen, hard times right now, so maybe we can take it back a few notches, and then when it gets better, you can maybe make up for it there. Try different kinds of marketing instead of traditional advertising. And again, I hate doing this because even the newspapers want to stay in business, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. So obviously social media is an option for everybody, and get more aggressive with that if you possibly can. This was one of my favorite ones, and something that I had never really thought about myself, but switching to a line of credit. And Gina and I were talking about this, and Gina, we can even bring in the EIDL loans with this, as you brought up. But instead of, I said use your credit cards, but so even use your credit cards, get the points. Here's a double whammy. Use your credit card, get the points, and then use your line of credit to pay off your credit cards, instead of having to carry a balance. And the reason you do that is because credit cards balances typically are 20%, 21% interest, even higher sometimes, and a line of credit is typically around 5 or 6%. So if you're just really that stuck and you don't have the money to be able to pay them off, then possibly the bank, you can get help with a line of credit. And then Gina had also suggested the EIDL loans. They're 3% interest, 3.5%.
3.75. They're 3.75, and that's a great way. Again, I know many of you already have received EIDL. If you have not, it's still available, so you can go out online, the SBA.gov website, and check to apply if you're still interested in applying. But that's a 3.75%. It's a 30-year loan, so your repayment is going to be very low, but again, a significant amount less in interest than you would be paying on a line of credit, or even some of your other outstanding debt that is out there right now. So use your EIDL wisely if you did receive EIDL, and pay off those debts that are accruing sometimes astronomical amounts of interest, right? With a credit card that might be at 20, 24, 25% interest rate. You want to pay those off immediately with that EIDL.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, so the next one was find alternative funding, and I think that's the answer, is the EIDL is your alternative funding. Even negotiate with vendors. I know that I'm a big negotiator when it comes, do bidding. In the world of municipalities, we are required to bid jobs and product, etc. So pick up the phone and call several different vendors, and when you get a price from one, when you call another one and you say, listen, I got this price from this vendor, can you beat that? And they're going to, because again, they're in the same boat as you are. They need more business, and they need the money and the revenue. And so I think at this time, everybody is willing to do anything that they can to bring in business and to help businesses, and just to move forward with what's going on. Automate and outsource your admin. This is something that I was talking to Gina about. This is something like myself. I do training, but I also do bookkeeping. And this is not a I'm wonderful type of thing, pat myself on the back thing. But I seriously have gone into businesses where they've had full-time people, and they've been able to not have the full-time people, and I can go in and do the bookkeeping in one day versus them paying somebody to do it in 5 days. And this is on this list. It is a big thing. Contract out possibly that kind of work is your bookkeeping or other kind of contracting. So it's a big cost saving thing when you outsource that kind of thing. Dial back on your advertising. Again, it kind of goes along with use social media versus brick and mortar advertising. Reduce insurance costs. That's something that possibly you can do, is call up your insurance agent. I know that I'm one that I will scrutinize my insurance policy. And if you don't look at things like that, there could be things on there that you're paying for that you don't know you're paying for, and you don't need them. And I know my home insurance is one of them. One of them was a couple of years ago, I had looked at our policy, and it had something to do with sewer. And I called our agent about it, and it was just automatically put on. And I'm like, I don't need this. I'm on a sewer system, so I don't need this. And so I was able to reduce the cost of it. Another thing right now is I'm with Erie Insurance, and I had called them when our policy renewed back in April, and and I know I just saw Erie advertise this last week, I think. They have a new program now where it's a guaranteed payment. And I don't know if other ones are doing this or not, but now it reduced by us agreeing to do this, your policy cannot change unless you change a vehicle. Meaning, for now, if I keep my same vehicles for the next 5 years, then my insurance payments stay the same. So check with your insurance company on something like that. What kind of programs are they offering? It was a significant savings for my family on our car insurance. I think it was literally like $500 or $600 we just saved in May by going to this policy. Maximize any of your tax deductions, expense tracking apps, research, advice from an accountant. Call your accountant and see what you can do to maximize your tax deductions. Big changes, again, switching from employees to contractors, that can be time saving. Nobody wants to see any employees lose their jobs, obviously. But when push comes to shove, if it's something that you have to do to save your business, then maybe that's what you need to do. Hire contractors to do, freelancers. And I'm not just talking about your accounting side of it. I'm talking about other parts of it as well. Downsizing your office. Maybe now that you've worked from home, you realize, hey, maybe we can work from home and we don't need an office downtown. We can work from home. Or maybe just not as big of an office. And team up with other businesses. Buying groups and trade associations offer savings for their members. So that, again, is something. And always use your chamber. I know Gina was talking to me earlier about all the things that they offer. If there's copies that you need to be made, the example that Gina gave earlier to me was the restaurants that need disposable menus now. Instead of going to Staples and paying 25 cents a copy, the chamber is willing to help out, and they can help you with your copies. And so things like that, you can, call the chamber and see what the chamber can do for you. And another thing we were talking about is getting rid of customers that aren't worth having. And that is a big thing. Seriously, during this pandemic, I actually let a customer go, a client of mine go, because it wasn't worth to me what the effort that I was putting into them. And it's the first time I've ever done it in my 20-year career, but it was something that was coming. I've had my husband telling me for a year now to get rid of them. And so now was the time. So we did. And it's good. It's all good. So I have some examples that Gina's going to be downloading or uploading, I should say. I have a Excel budget worksheet that I found that you can actually just punch in the numbers. It's a great tool for you to be able to use, and that'll give you an idea of how to create your budget. Even if you don't have past information, again, if you had just this year's information, you could put that into an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to be offering that up. These 25 tips, we're going to upload that. And then there's another one that I found on Forbes.com. It's creating a budget in these times. And Gina's going to upload that as well.
And I wanted to share some information regarding the revenue side of this. So many of you may have missed the call on Monday last week. We had our county commissioners that were talking about the county relief block grants. That application is available now, and if you email WeCare@wycopa.org, they will email you that application. Again, that's WeCare@wycopa.org, and they will email you the grant application. They have grants for small businesses, less than 100 employees, municipalities that have incurred direct expenses related to COVID, tourism businesses of all sizes, and then nonprofit 501c3s and 501c19 organizations. Those are veterans organizations. So that is a great, again, revenue source. This is grant funding. I also wanted to mention the small business assistance program, which is coming through the state of Pennsylvania, and Metro Action will have that information. That grant application should be available tomorrow, and that could be found at metroaction.org. And I'll have more information about that on our website today as well. There is a webinar that was done on Friday regarding the Small Business Assistance Program. As soon as I have the upload of that webinar, that was done by Metro Action, which is a part of the Scranton Chamber. As soon as I have that webinar, I will email it out to all of our members as well. This is a great program, and it definitely, again, assisting businesses with small businesses and assisting them with grant funding. One of the things that Diana and I talked about earlier is for your PPP, and this was something that came up on an earlier call, you're not able to put your expenses as they relate to your PPP that is forgivable on your Schedule C. So, but you're also not allowed to put that revenue if it's forgivable on your Schedule C. Some of these other grant programs, you'll record that in your revenue and expenses, but for PPP specifically, you cannot record that revenue and expense on your tax forms this year. So just be aware of that and make sure that you are talking to an accountant.
What I have done with my clients that have gotten the PPP money
Mhm.
is we actually created a expense account that's an other expense and an other income. So it's still gonna it's you can't record it in your like you said with your when you're doing your taxes at the end of the year, but you can see it on your P&L, but it'll be as other income and other expenditures. And we just named it PPP expenses and PPP income. And that way it's going, it's right there in your face and very trackable. And so it doesn't interfere with all of your true other expenses. And it's not getting coagulated with all of that. So um, I think I've talked to several accountants and they really like it that I'm keeping it separated that way.
Mhm. And if you have any, questions about that, certainly we developed the PPP spreadsheet, but if you have questions about tracking it in QuickBooks, I'm sure Diana would be available to get an email or a phone call about any of those questions that you may have. And she can be found on our chamber website, again, Numbers Made Easy. We have just a couple of things I wanted to talk about on the revenue side, and Diana alluded to these earlier. So I know especially with the chamber and being in event planning, kind of throughout my whole career, much of what we do is events, and sometimes what we have to look at is that revenue from that event really worth the expense? And not just talk about the direct expense as it relates to that revenue, but as Diana said earlier, the time. So how much time are you spending earning that revenue, right? How much time were you spending with that client who was very demanding, but versus the amount of revenue they were paying you? Could you pick up another client that certainly wouldn't take up as much time, and maybe you could afford to have 2 or 3 more clients and twice that revenue from that one client because you have more time now? So these are all very important things that either as organizations or for-profit businesses that we all need to be thinking about when we look at our revenue, is really what is the cost of that revenue right now. Sometimes when we think about budgets, we spend a lot of the time thinking about our expense side and how do we cut those expenses. Well, some of the easiest way to cut expenses is also to cut out a piece of your revenue so that you don't have that time sucking event or client or again revenue generator, but also expense generator. So that's sometimes difficult for companies, but I think that when one of the things again that we've talked about throughout this whole COVID experience is pivoting, right? So what can you change about how you earn your income that can make that income earning more beneficial to your business and therefore save you expense in the long run? And there are many experts out there that can help you do that. Certainly the Small Business Development Center, we've all talked with Keith Yurgoski several times throughout our Restart, Rebound, Rebuild series, talking to other industry leaders. So who in our area or in other areas has the same type of business that you do? What are they doing to save themselves money? What are the best practices? I mean, as Diana said, one of the things that she and I both did, and one of the things that I've been doing all throughout this whole COVID is Googling, right? So Google and find best practices. Google and find other people who have like businesses to you. What are they doing? And would they be willing to talk to you? So I've reached out to many colleagues in the chamber industry throughout this experience and said, what's working well for you, what's not? What are you seeing in trends in revenue right now? Are you still planning to hold your events? Do you still see sponsorship and membership monies coming in? And what may that look like for us and our chamber locally? So those are things that I would certainly encourage you to do. I think sometimes as business owners, our world can be a little isolating, and we often don't take the time to talk to other business owners about some of those hard conversations. And it doesn't need to be about what are the dollars, but rather what are the percentages, right? So what percent of revenue or what percent of your expense is your PPE supplies right now? Are you feeling like that is comparable to other industries, other businesses within your industry? What percent for us as a chamber, what percent of membership renewals are being collected right now throughout the industry as a whole? And is that something that our numbers in the Wyoming County Chamber, are they comparable to other chambers throughout the country and other like chambers, right? So what are other like businesses to you? And can you get some advice from them right now? Because I think everyone, while we're all not in the same boat but we all are in this water together trying to figure out how we're going to get to our next steps. And I think the most important part of rebuilding after COVID and recovery from COVID is really being open and honest with who we are as business people and business leaders, and how we can overcome this shutdown, and how we can, as we talked about, how we can prevent further shutdown, but also recover quickly if that does need to happen again. And that kind of leads us to maybe one final piece here that Diana and I talked about, and I'll throw it back to Diana for this, is, and no one ever thought that this, something like this was not anticipated, right? And it seemingly hit us out of the blue overnight. But we have been encouraging our businesses to set up that disaster fund, right? Have a plan for when something bad happens. In our area, it's been flooding, right? Have a plan when the next flood comes. Have a plan if your business has a fire, right? Have a plan. What can you recommend right now, again, taking into account all these budgeting pieces that we've just talked about? What do you recommend to people kind of moving forward in having that plan, that disaster fund?
I think that like the information that I was getting off of the internet is only about 60% of the businesses have any kind of emergency funds out there, and that's not good. I'll give you an example. When I first took over my township job, it was back in 1990, and the township that I went into had, every year we were taking a tax anticipation note, which a lot of municipalities will do. You get it, you take it out for 1 year, and then you have to have it paid back by the next year, because what you're basically doing is waiting for your taxes to come in. And I actually, so we ran like that for 2 years, and when I took on QuickBooks, I actually got trained in QuickBooks back in 1992 by a gentleman that worked for DCED out of Harrisburg. And he came in, and the very first thing he did was see that we were doing the tax anticipations. And he's like, you need to have in your budget some money for emergencies. And so right then and there, I went back to my supervisors and I said, listen, we need to have a contingency here where we put some money aside in our budget every year for us as a municipality. And that's what we did. And once we did that, we were able to stop doing the tax anticipation notes. So it's the same thing that happens with a business. I created a budget for myself. I've been in this for 30 years, been doing accounting and had my own business for 20 now. And I will honestly tell you, I just started a budget as far as that goes 2 years ago. I opened a new account in my bank, and now every month, the same day every month, I put money into that budget, and that's my emergency fund. And thank heavens I had it. I have it because of this of the COVID and what's happened. And it's so important. And even though there's times when I think, oh, I can't do it this month, I just can't do it, I do it. And it works out, and you need to. So you know what? Sometimes I've had to take from it, I've had to borrow from it, but then the next month when I make my payment, I make my payment that I've budgeted and the money that I borrowed from it, and I put it back into it. So it is very, very important to understand. And when we were talking about it earlier, Gina and I, take the idle money and put some of that. Gina said maybe a year's worth of your payments for the idle, and take that and just put it into an account. Let it earn some interest. It won't be much, but at least anything is something. And there you go. You have a budget. You've got that money there, so you can not have to worry about those payments for the next year. So always having an emergency fund is just critical to any business, and you just have to build that into your budget. Start small if you have to. If it's $50 a month, it's $50 a month, and then you can build it up to whatever you need it to be, whatever you're comfortable with once your business gets back on track.
Right. And I think it's definitely, and we'll start wrapping up now, but I think that is definitely an important point to leave on, because as we rebuild our businesses and we start to rebuild our budgets, we really do need to focus on, you know, what happens or what could happen in the next disaster. And we don't want to find ourselves in the situations where we were, where we weren't sure if we could or would survive this, right? So by starting, step one of your new rebuilding budget should really be, what do I need to put in a disaster fund? And I think that is critical to, again, now I can look at, how do I save expenses? How do I pivot my revenue? But first and foremost, what do I need to have in case there is no revenue in the future? What do I need to have in a fund that says this is for emergencies only? So I think we will leave it at that. Diana, do you have any final words? I know we're at 10 o'clock. Do you have any final words for our group and for those that may be watching after?
Yeah, I'll offer up my services. If anybody needs any help creating their budget, I would be more than happy to help them. I have 30 years of experience doing budgets, and so I would be more than happy to guide anyone through those.
And as Diana said, she does have some templates she's going to send over to me. We will post those on the Chamber website. This recording will be available, so you can watch this going forward. And we will post some other links to some helpful articles. If you need help with just understanding Excel, how to add columns to Diana's spreadsheet, please reach out. The Chamber can certainly help you to do that and give you a little tutorial on Excel if that's something that you do struggle with. Again, we are here to help. Sometimes our businesses don't think the Chamber can help with that, and we may not be able to help with that ourselves, but we certainly know a lot of members and a lot of other people who can help you. So please, if you're struggling with something during this time, even if you think it's something little like, how am I going to get these menus printed and run to Staples and pick them up? call the chamber. That's where all that started from. Someone called us and said, I don't know how I'm going to get copies of disposable menus because I don't have a big printer to do that. And I said, well, we do, and we could do that. And then we offered it up to our other members. So if you have something that you just don't know how to get through this, even if it seems insignificant to you, call and we will help you to find a solution to this. Thank you, Diana, for being on our call today, talking to
Thanks
us
for
about
having me.
budgeting. Again, Wednesday will be our last Restart, Rebound, Rebuild call, but we know that there's still information out there that things are changing with PPP, things are changing with EIDL. More grant programs continue to be rolled out and more information will be available on those. So while we won't be doing calls 3 days a week, we will start rolling out a new series of calls. So be on our call on Wednesday and we'll have more information about that. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a great week and we will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.